Picture this. You're sitting in a boardroom watching your childhood friend, the same person you pulled from rock bottom, confidently pitching your biggest client on why they should fire you and hire him instead. The betrayal cuts so deep you can taste metal in your mouth. But here's the twist. I let him finish his presentation. And what happened next? Well, let's just say karma has a PhD in poetic justice. If you've ever been stabbed in the back by someone you trusted, if you've ever wondered what real revenge looks like, then buckle up. Because I'm about to tell you the most calculated, satisfying, and absolutely ruthless revenge story you've ever heard. And I promise you, every single word of this is true. My name is Oliver Bennett, and I'm speaking to you from my corner office in London. An office that almost didn't exist because of what you're about to hear. 7 years ago, I was running one of the most successful event logistics companies in the city. We handled everything from corporate launches to high-end weddings, managing million-pound budgets like clockwork. But this story isn't about my success. It's about how someone I considered family tried to burn it all down. You know, they say the worst wounds come from the people closest to you. That betrayal from a stranger stings, but betrayal from someone you love? That's the kind that leaves scars on your soul. And if you've ever experienced that knife-twisting feeling of realizing someone you trusted was plotting your downfall, well, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Because what started as an act of kindness, me trying to help an old friend get back on his feet, turned into the most vicious corporate backstabbing you can imagine. But here's the beautiful part. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting ahead. Way ahead. Let me take you back to where this all began. Secondary school in North London, 1995. Liam Ashworth was everything I wasn't. While I was struggling with algebra and getting detention for talking back to teachers, Liam was the golden boy. Head boy, debate team captain, straight A's across the board. Teachers would literally point at him during parent meetings and say, "Why can't you be more like Liam?" I remember one particular geography lesson where Mr. Peterson asked about trade winds or something equally boring. Every hand shot up except mine. I was doodling plans for a party I wanted to organize. But Liam didn't just answer the question. He gave a 15-minute dissertation on global weather patterns that had even the teacher taking notes. The kid was brilliant. Genuinely, intimidatingly brilliant. But here's what's funny about life. It doesn't always reward the smartest person in the room. Sometimes it rewards the person who's willing to get their hands dirty, who's willing to fail 100 times just to succeed once. Fast forward 15 years. I built my company, Pinnacle Events, from literally nothing. Started in my cramped studio flat, making calls on a second-hand phone, using my kitchen table as a desk. The early days were brutal, 18-hour days, living on instant noodles, getting rejected more times than I care to count. But I had something Liam didn't. I was hungry. Not the intellectual hunger he had, the desperate, clawing hunger of someone who refused to accept failure. By 2019, Pinnacle Events was pulling in 7 figures annually. We had a team of 23, offices in Canary Wharf, and contracts with some of the biggest names in London. My personal favorite? Harrington and Company, the most prestigious consulting firm in the city. They trusted us with their annual conferences, client entertainment, even their partner retreats. That contract alone was worth £400,000 a year. Life was good. No, life was brilliant. And then I ran into Liam at a coffee shop in Shoreditch. If you've ever seen someone you once knew completely broken down by life, you'll understand what I felt that day. This wasn't the confident, articulate boy from school. This was a man who looked like he'd been chewed up by the world and spat out. His suit was cheap and ill-fitting. His shoes were scuffed. But worst of all were his eyes. They had this hollow, defeated look that made my chest tighten. "Oliver?" he said, and I could hear the surprise mixed with embarrassment in his voice. We talked for 2 hours. He told me about the struggles, the endless job applications, the rejections. Despite all his qualifications, first-class honors from Cambridge and MBA from LSE, he couldn't catch a break. The financial crisis had hit just as he was starting his career, and somehow he'd never recovered. You know what the worst part was? He wasn't bitter about my success. He was genuinely happy for me. Said he always knew I'd make something of myself, even when the teachers didn't see it. That conversation haunted me for weeks. So I made a decision that would almost cost me everything. I offered Liam a job. Not out of pity, you understand. Well, maybe partly out of pity. But also because I genuinely believed I could help him get back on his feet. Plus, his academic credentials were impressive, and I thought he could bring a level of strategic thinking to the company that we were missing. "Come work for me," I said. "Learn the business, earn a decent salary, and maybe in a year or two you can figure out your next move." The relief in his eyes was heartbreaking. He actually teared up right there in the coffee shop. "I won't let you down, Oliver," he said, gripping my hand. "I promise you I will never forget this kindness." Famous last words, right? Liam started at Pinnacle Events 3 weeks later. I gave him the title of Strategic Development Associate, fancy enough to make him feel valued, vague enough that I could mold the role around his strengths. And for the first few months, everything was perfect. Too perfect, as I'd later realize. Liam was like a sponge, absorbing every detail about the business. He'd stay late, ask thoughtful questions, even suggest improvements to our processes. The rest of the team loved him. He had this natural charm that made everyone feel heard and valued. I was proud. Here was proof that sometimes good deeds really do pay off. I'd saved a friend and he was helping me build something even better. But you know what they say about wolves in sheep's clothing? The first red flag should have been how quickly he learned client names and contract details. I thought it showed dedication. What it actually showed was calculation. The second red flag was how he started positioning himself in client meetings. Instead of saying, "Oliver's company has achieved," he'd say, "We've achieved." Or even, "I've been working on." Again, I brushed it off. Team mentality, right? I actually thought it was healthy that he felt ownership. God, I was naive. The third red flag was the questions. Not the normal, "How do we improve efficiency?" questions, but specific, probing questions about profit margins, supplier contracts, client satisfaction scores. Questions that felt less like learning and more like auditing. But the biggest red flag, the one I should have seen from space, was how he talked about the business when he thought I couldn't hear him. I'll never forget the day I caught him on the phone in the break room. I was walking past to grab some coffee when I heard him say, "The company's good, but it could be great with the right leadership. Oliver's gotten complacent, you know?" Success made him soft. I froze outside the door, blood turning to ice in my veins. He continued, "I mean, he's a decent guy, gave me a chance when I needed it, but he's not the strategic thinker this business needs to really take off. Half our processes are outdated, and don't get me started on how much we're overpaying suppliers." I never found out who he was talking to that day. But I knew, deep in my gut, that my act of kindness had created a monster. Still, I didn't act immediately. Maybe I was hoping I'd misunderstood. Maybe I was giving him the benefit of the doubt because of our history. Or maybe, and this is the part that still keeps me up at night, maybe I was scared that he might actually be right about some things. But then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Thursday morning around 10 a.m. I was reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant, Sarah, knocked on my door with a strange expression. "Oliver," she said carefully, "I just got off the phone with Margaret from Harrington and Company. She wanted to confirm the meeting details for tomorrow." "What meeting?" I asked. "The meeting with Liam. Apparently, he requested a one-on-one with their management team to discuss optimizing their event logistics partnership." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually had to grip my desk to steady myself. "Did you schedule this meeting?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "No," Sarah said quietly. "And neither did you." That's when I knew. Not suspected, not worried, knew. Liam wasn't just ungrateful. He wasn't just talking behind my back. He was actively trying to steal my biggest client. The friend I'd pulled from the gutter, the man I'd trusted with my business secrets, the person who promised he'd never forget my kindness. He was sharpening the knife to stab me right in the back. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to ask you something. What would you do in this situation? Would you confront him immediately? Fire him on the spot? Or would you do what I did, which was far more calculated and ultimately far more devastating? Drop your answer in the comments because I'm genuinely curious. And if this story is keeping you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more revenge stories that'll make your blood boil and your heart race. Because what I did next would either save my company or destroy it completely. And Liam? Well, Liam had no idea what was coming for him. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything except the image of Liam sitting across from the Harrington executives, poison-tonguing me while wearing the suit I'd helped him afford. But here's the thing about betrayal, it clarifies everything. All the doubt, all the second-guessing, all the maybe I'm overreacting thoughts just disappear. In their place comes something much more dangerous, absolute clarity. I called Margaret Harrington directly. "Margaret," I said, "I understand Liam has a meeting with your team tomorrow." There was an uncomfortable pause. "Yes, Oliver. I hope you don't mind. He said he had some innovative ideas for improving our partnership." "I don't mind at all," I lied smoothly. "In fact, I'd like to be there. After all, any innovations should involve the whole Pinnacle team, don't you think? Another pause. Well, Liam specifically requested that this be a preliminary discussion. Just him and our management team. Margaret, I said carefully, Liam works for me. Any business he discusses with you is my business. Now, I can either be in that meeting as his boss and your actual contracted partner, or I can start wondering why my biggest client is taking secret meetings with my employees. Your choice. The silence on the line was deafening. Finally, of course, Oliver. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll have Liam know you'll be joining. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, from anticipation. Because I wasn't just going to attend Liam's little presentation. I was going to let him hang himself with his own rope. That night, I did something I'd never done in my entire career. I prepared to sabotage one of my own employees. But Liam wasn't really my employee anymore, was he? He was a traitor wearing my company's badge. I stayed in the office until 3 a.m., building my counter-presentation. Not just facts and figures, although I had plenty of those. I was building a fortress of competence so unshakable that Liam's house of cards would collapse at the first strong wind. Every supplier contract we'd ever negotiated, I had the originals with terms that would make Liam's cost-cutting promises look like fantasy. Every successful event we'd managed, I had photos, testimonials, and detailed post-event reports showing results that spoke louder than any promise. Every contingency plan, every backup supplier, every insurance policy, every piece of the intricate machine I'd built over 7 years, I had it all documented, verified, and ready to deploy. But most importantly, I had something Liam didn't. The trust and respect earned through years of flawless delivery. Friday 2 p.m. Harrington and Company's conference room on the 34th floor of their Canary Wharf tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Thames, a mahogany table that probably cost more than most people's cars, and 5 of the most powerful executives in London waiting to hear why they should betray their trusted partner. I arrived exactly on time. Liam was already there, laptop open, dressed in his best suit, looking like he was about to deliver the presentation of his life. When he saw me walk in, the color drained from his face. Oliver, he stammered, I wasn't expecting. I mean, Margaret didn't mention. Didn't she? I said pleasantly, taking the seat directly across from him. How strange. Well, I'm here now. Please don't let me interrupt. I'm very curious to hear these innovative ideas you've been developing. What happened next was simultaneously the most satisfying and most heartbreaking hour of my professional life. Liam started strong, I'll give him that. He had slides, he had charts, he even had a fancy logo for what he was calling Next Gen Event Solutions. Apparently the company he'd already registered to steal my clients. He talked about revolutionary approaches to logistics management and cutting-edge cost optimization strategies. He promised 20% cost savings while delivering 30% better results. The Harrington executives were nodding. A couple of them even took notes. And I just sat there, letting him dig his own grave deeper with every slide. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Margaret leaned forward and asked the first real question. These cost savings sound impressive, Liam. Can you walk us through your supplier network? Silence. I mean, she continued, Oliver has relationships with premium venues across London, guaranteed capacity holds, emergency backup locations. What's your equivalent infrastructure? More silence. I watched Liam's confident facade start to crack. Well, he said slowly, I'm in the process of developing those relationships. Developing? This from James Harrington himself, Margaret's brother and the firm's managing partner. So you don't actually have contracts in place? Not yet, but what about insurance? Another executive jumped in. Pinnacle carries comprehensive coverage for every event. Liability, cancellation, weather, even terrorism. What's your coverage? Liam was visibly sweating now. I'm working on securing appropriate coverage. Working on it? That's when I decided to put him out of his misery. If I may, I said, opening my laptop. I think what Liam is trying to say is that he has ideas for how things could be done differently. And ideas are valuable. But ideas without infrastructure, without proven relationships, without insurance, without backup plans, well, they're just dreams, aren't they? I clicked to my first slide. A photo of their last annual conference. 500 executives in a flawlessly organized networking event at the Guildhall. This event required coordination with 14 different suppliers, backup plans for 3 different weather scenarios, and real-time management of dietary requirements for 43 different attendees. We delivered it flawlessly, on time, and under budget. Next slide. A testimonial letter from their previous year's partner retreat. Our team managed transportation for 200 people, accommodation coordination across 4 different hotels, and emergency evacuation procedures when that storm hit the Lake District. Everyone got home safely, and you told me it was the best retreat your company had ever organized. I could see Liam shrinking in his chair with every slide. These aren't promises, I continued. These are results. Proven, documented, ensured results backed by 7 years of flawless delivery and relationships that took a decade to build. Alright, I need to pause here because I can see some of you are probably shouting at your screens right now. Maybe you think I'm being too harsh. Maybe you think Liam deserved a chance to explain himself. Well, let me ask you this. If someone you trusted with your livelihood was secretly trying to destroy everything you'd built, would you show mercy? Or would you do exactly what I did? Hit that like button if you think Liam got exactly what he deserved, and subscribe if you want to see how this story ends, because we're just getting to the good part. The meeting lasted another 30 minutes, but it was really over the moment I started presenting facts instead of fantasies. By the end, Liam looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. Margaret thanked us both for our presentations, but her tone made it clear which way the wind was blowing. We'll be in touch, she said diplomatically. As we rode the elevator down, Liam finally found his voice. Why did you do that? He asked quietly. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for a moment I saw the broken man from the coffee shop again. But then I remembered Sarah's phone call, the secret meeting, the betrayal. Because, I said, you forgot something important. You forgot that loyalty flows both ways. I gave you a chance when no one else would. I trusted you with my business, my clients, my secrets. And you repaid that trust by trying to stab me in the back. The elevator doors opened at the ground floor. Liam, I said as he started to walk away, don't bother coming in on Monday. Security will box up your personal items and send them to your flat. He turned back and for a moment I thought he might apologize. Might show some remorse for what he'd tried to do. Instead he said, you can't fire me for being ambitious. You're right, I replied. I'm firing you for being disloyal. There's a difference. And that was the last conversation I ever had with Liam Ashworth. You might think that's where the story ends. Betrayer exposed, business saved, life goes on. But revenge, real revenge, isn't just about winning a single battle. It's about what happens after the smoke clears. Because what happened to Liam over the next 6 months wasn't just karma. It was a masterclass in how quickly the business world can turn on someone who breaks trust. Within a week of our Harrington meeting, word had spread through London's tight-knit business community. And here's something I learned about corporate reputation. It travels faster than wildfire and burns twice as hot. Sarah told me she'd heard from 3 different event managers about that guy who tried to poach clients from his own boss. Margaret Harrington mentioned it to someone at their law firm, who mentioned it to someone at their accounting firm, who mentioned it to someone else. Liam had registered Next Gen Event Solutions, thinking he'd have Harrington as his first client. Instead, he had a company name, a fancy website, and absolutely no customers. But it gets better. Remember how I mentioned Liam had been asking detailed questions about our supplier relationships? Well, those suppliers started getting calls from someone claiming to represent the new direction of Pinnacle Events. Here's what Liam didn't understand about the event logistics business. Suppliers don't just care about money. They care about reputation, reliability, and long-term relationships. When they started asking around about this new direction and heard the real story, let's just say those relationships he was developing, they developed right into dead ends. 3 weeks after I fired him, my phone rang at 7 p.m. on a Friday. Unknown number. Oliver? The voice was hollow, desperate. Liam. I need to talk to you. Please. Just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at the same coffee shop where we'd reconnected all those months ago. Full circle, you might say. He looked worse than he had before I hired him. The confidence was gone, replaced by something close to panic. They won't even take my calls, he said without preamble. Every supplier, every venue, everyone knows. Knows what? About what I tried to do. About the meeting. It's like I'm blacklisted from the entire industry. I sipped my coffee and said nothing. I made a mistake, he continued. A huge mistake. I was angry, jealous maybe. Seeing you succeed while I struggled. It ate at me. But I never meant for it to go this far. Here's where I had a choice. I could have forgiven him, maybe even offered him a reference for jobs outside the events industry. The old Oliver might have done that, the Oliver who believed in second chances and the fundamental goodness of people. But that Oliver had died in a Canary Wharf elevator 3 weeks earlier. Liam, I said carefully, do Do you know what the difference is between a mistake and betrayal? He looked up hopefully. A mistake is accidental. Betrayal is calculated. You didn't accidentally schedule a secret meeting with my biggest client. You didn't accidentally prepare a presentation to steal my business. You didn't accidentally register a competing company while taking my salary. His face fell. Every step of what you did required planning, deception, and malice. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal. And betrayal has consequences. I stood up to leave. Oliver, please. I have rent to pay, bills. I can't get blacklisted. Not again. I paused at the door. You know what, Liam? You're right. You shouldn't be blacklisted forever. Hope flickered in his eyes. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put out word that anyone who doesn't hire you because of what happened with me is making a mistake. Really? Really? Because what you tried to do to me, you'll try to do to them eventually too. And they deserve to know exactly what kind of employee they're getting. The hope died as quickly as it had appeared. Consider it my final gift to you, I said. The gift of truth. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and think about this. Some of you might think I was too harsh. Some of you might think Liam got exactly what he deserved. But here's my question. When someone betrays your trust, do you owe them mercy? Or do you owe it to the next person they might betray to warn them? Let me know in the comments what you think. And if you're enjoying this journey through the dark side of business relationships, hit that subscribe button because I've got more stories about trust, betrayal, and the price people pay when they choose the wrong side. But this isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about what happens when you survive the worst betrayal imaginable and use it to build something even stronger. The Liam situation taught me something crucial about business. Trust is your most valuable asset, and protecting it should be your highest priority. First, I restructured every employee contract to include ironclad non-compete and non-disclosure clauses. Anyone who wanted to work at Pinnacle Events would know that betrayal came with legal consequences, not just professional ones. Second, I implemented compartmentalization. No single employee would ever again have access to all our client relationships, supplier contracts, and strategic plans. Call it paranoia. I call it learning from experience. Third, I created what I called the loyalty bonus program. Employees who stayed with the company for more than 2 years received increasingly generous profit-sharing bonuses. The message was clear. Loyalty is rewarded, betrayal is punished. But the most beautiful part of this story isn't what I did to protect myself from future Liams. It's what happened when word got out about how I'd handled the situation. Remember how I said reputation travels fast in the business world? Well, it turned out that my reputation was traveling too. And the story people were telling wasn't about me being vindictive or cruel. It was about me being smart. Within 6 months of the Harrington meeting, I'd signed 3 new major clients. Not because they felt sorry for me, but because they respected how I'd handled the crisis. We want to work with someone who values loyalty, one CEO told me. Someone who knows the difference between ambition and betrayal. Another said, the way you protected your business without losing your professionalism? That's exactly the kind of person we want managing our events. By the end of that year, Pinnacle Events had grown by 40%. We hired 8 new employees, moved to larger offices, and landed our first international contract. The betrayal that was supposed to destroy me had made me stronger, smarter, and more successful than ever. And Liam? Last I heard, he'd moved to Manchester and was working in retail management. Nothing wrong with retail management, of course, but it was a far cry from the corporate consulting world he dreamed of conquering. The man who thought he was smarter than me, who believed he could build a better business than I could, ended up folding sweaters for a living. The irony was so perfect it almost felt like fiction. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd never offered Liam that job. Would he have found his way eventually? Would our friendship have survived? But then I remember something important. I didn't betray him. I didn't scheme behind his back or try to destroy his life. I offered him kindness and he repaid it with treachery. The consequences he faced weren't my revenge. They were the natural result of his choices. Before we wrap up this incredible journey, I want to hear from you one more time. Have you ever been in a situation where helping someone came back to bite you? How did you handle it? And more importantly, do you think loyalty is something that should be rewarded, or is it just something people should expect? Your answers fascinate me, and I read every single comment. So don't be shy, tell me your story. As I sit here today, 7 years after that coffee shop encounter that started this whole mess, I can honestly say that Liam Ashworth gave me the greatest gift anyone has ever given me. Not intentionally, of course. But his betrayal taught me lessons about trust, loyalty, and human nature that no business school could have provided. It taught me that success attracts not just opportunities, but also predators. It taught me that kindness without boundaries is just weakness in disguise. And most importantly, it taught me that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's success so overwhelming that your enemies become irrelevant. Today, Pinnacle Events is one of the most respected event logistics companies in Europe. We have offices in London, Paris, and Berlin. We employ over 150 people who understand that loyalty isn't just a nice idea, it's a business principle. And every single one of them knows the story of Liam Ashworth. Not because I tell it to be vindictive, but because I tell it to be clear. At Pinnacle Events, we reward loyalty and we punish betrayal. Full stop. So what's the moral of this story? Is it that you should never trust anyone? That kindness always gets punished? That the business world is nothing but sharks swimming in bloody water? No. The moral is that trust is earned, loyalty is precious, and betrayal has consequences. But those consequences don't have to destroy you. They can remake you into something stronger, smarter, and more successful than you ever imagined possible. If this story has moved you, inspired you, or even just entertained you for the past hour, then I need you to do something for me right now. First, smash that like button. Seriously, demolish it. This story took 7 years to live and weeks to craft for you, and your like tells me it was worth it. Second, subscribe and ring that notification bell. Because I have more stories like this, stories of betrayal and redemption, of underdogs and comebacks, of people who thought they could destroy me and live to regret it. And trust me, some of them make the Liam story look like a children's bedtime tale. Third, share this video. Share it with anyone who's ever been betrayed by someone they trusted. Share it with anyone who thinks loyalty is old-fashioned. Share it with anyone who needs to be reminded that success is the sweetest revenge. And finally, I want you to remember something. Your story isn't over. Whatever betrayal you've faced, whatever setback you've endured, whatever enemy thinks they've defeated you, your story isn't over. Mine wasn't over when Liam tried to destroy me. It was just beginning. Yours isn't over either. This is Oliver Bennett, reminding you that loyalty is rare, betrayal is costly, and success is the only revenge worth having. I'll see you in the next video where I'll tell you about the time a competitor tried to steal my entire team, and how I made them regret it for the rest of their careers. Until then, stay loyal to those who deserve it, and never, ever trust a snake just because it's wearing a nice suit.